This video is an interesting topic. There are different videos being circulated in the social media on the fire started by cell phones in petrol filling stations. There are also warnings posted against use of petrol, use of cell phones in the petrol filling stations and other explosive places. So, is it really a fact that you cannot use cell phones in a petrol filling station? One of my friends asked me to post an explanation on this. That's why I come out with this video. Before going into the final conclusion, let me just bring in a few technical pieces of information which is very helpful to understand why and how substances like petrol can become flammable or it catches fire. The first property is the flash point. The flash point is the minimum temperature at which a substance like petrol or any such substances can form vapors good enough to start an ignition. For diesel, it is around 50 degrees centigrade, very high, higher than the atmospheric temperature. So it is not very dangerous, very flammable. Whereas petrol, its flash point is negative temperature. So atmospheric temperature, it easily forms a flammable vapor space, which has the potential to catch a fire. The second property is the explosive limit. We call it the LEL and the UEL, lower explosive limit and upper explosive limit. That is the mixture of air and oxygen. For an ignition to happen, air is required and the fuel is required. So vapors of fuel and air forms a mixture. If it falls between the percentage mixture falls between the LEL and UEL, it can catch fire. For gasoline, the property of LEL and UEL, it is between 1.4% to 7.5%. Diesel is also similar. Some substances like hydrogen, it is between 4 and 75, so it's very large range, so it is highly explosive. But that means the possibility, not everywhere you can find a mixture of air and fuel, the vapors of petrol falling within this range of explosive limit. But at some places in a petrol pump, definitely there is a possibility it can fall within this lean range. So there is always a potential hazard in a petrol pump for catching fire. But then third requirement for a fire to happen is an ignition source, a source of ignition or a very high temperature. Some people say high temperature can also trigger an ignition, provided the temperature exceeds the auto ignition temperature. That's another property, the self ignition temperature. Fortunately for diesel and petrol, it is very high. For diesel it is 200 degrees centigrade. For petrol it is 246 degrees centigrade. So very high temperatures. Not very easily you can find such high temperatures. By using a mobile phone also, it cannot heat up to that high temperature that a self ignition of a petrol or diesel can happen. Some substances like white phosphorus, it catches fire at very low temperatures, 35 degrees centigrade. But petrol and diesel, fortunately, it is pretty high. But some people say the exhaust pipes of two-wheelers, the mobile, especially sports bikes, can get really very hot. So it should be very careful that you don't allow spilling of petrol or such flammable liquid onto a hot surface like an exhaust pipe. But then ignition, whether an ignition source or a spark can be created by a mobile phone, a cell phone, it's a big question mark. The possibilities are very rare, to be precise. In fact, the cell phones, the only possibility of a spark which can come, the only part of a phone which can hypothetically dangerous is a battery. And that also a very rare scenario of if battery falling out and precisely on a conductor with the terminals falling onto the conductor, probably a spark can happen. A very, very, very rare scenario. But having said that, nowadays intrinsically safe, explosion-proof mobile phones are being used in explosive areas like refineries and hydrocarbon industries. They are specifically used. Only very properly designed battery-operated self-contained devices can be intrinsically safe, and it needs an intrinsic safety certification. So, if the design of the battery, everything has to be very precise to meet the intrinsic safety requirement, which really means that a mobile phone has a very low probability or potential to create a spark or a heat or something of that sort. In fact, so much so, in most of the videos what you see, catching fire in a petrol pump and all, they're all, the main culprit is something called the static electricity. Actually, there is more danger from static electricity from your own body than from the mobile phone. Mobile phone also can cause static electricity, even body. If you keep coming out and go inside the car, by rubbing on the seat itself, static electricity can come. Some experts believe that very high volts possible, with the static electricity. And static electricity fires become very common in flammable, explosive areas, explosive atmospheres. While there has no documented case of cell phone starting a fire in a gas station, researchers have actually tried to do that, but they failed to create a fire by using mobile phone. But possibility cannot be ruled out. A very, very rare possibility is always there, especially in a petrol pump. All other conditions are quite conducive for starting a fire. So one should be very careful. So let us follow all the safety rules and regulations. That's all. Thank you.